Hi everyone, Stepan here after playing a tournament for the first time in a year ever since the pandemic started. There was no chess, and finally a tournament has been held. It was a 7-round Swiss Open, and I played. It finished yesterday. I just came home. And I'm going to show you the first game. So a bit of context, this was Rabac's Open, and this tournament last year was held from the 2nd to the 6th of January. I played it and I scored extremely poorly. It was probably the worst tournament I've played so far, the last Rabac's Open. And the reason for that is I got paired against low-rated opponents and I performed poorly. I got a loss and a million draws against 15, 16, 1700 players, and I lost a lot of rating points. Now the reality is that those players, they're all very young. Most of them play better than me, and this year most of them were there and they scored extremely well. So this may be hard to understand, but I felt a lot of pressure going here. If I could choose a different tournament, I probably would have still played this one just to prove to myself that I'm not afraid. And it's hard to admit all of this, but I felt pressure. So coming into the first round, I had no idea whether I was going to play a very high-rated opponent or a very low-rated opponent, because I was just in the middle of the rating list, starting list. And I could basically be playing on board one against board one or against board 100, because there were about 100 players. So anyway, in the first round I got paired against 1200 rated opponent, and one thing I would like to say, I made the worst mistake of the tournament in this game, and I'm going to show you all games in the next 2 or 3 days. I think all but one were really fun and instructive, and this one, as I said, features my greatest mistake. So anyway, for the first round you have no idea who you're playing, so you have no time to prepare. Even if I did have time to prepare, my opponent doesn't have games in the database because he's young. I think he is about 12, 13, 14, I'm not sure. So I start out with the e4. My opponent plays the French. We have the Tarrasch, and he plays the closed Tarrasch with knight f6 after e5, knight d7. This is all the main line, bishop d3, c5, c3. You can watch the video on the French Tarrasch. It's on the channel. So knight c6, this is the main move. Knight e2 is the main move. And now, basically, cd4 or queen b6 are what people play. And the main line goes cd4, cd4, f6, against which I could play ef, which I probably would have played, or I could go for knight f4, the line in which white wins the exchange, but it's extremely hard to play for white after queen h5, king e7, ef6, knight f6, and knight g6. This has been played a million times. White wins the exchange. However, white is in trouble because of these two pawns, and it could get kind of messy. Against queen b6, you play knight f3 and you just reinforce d4. My opponent surprised me a great deal. He played the move a6. Now, this move I've faced before, but not in this position. I faced it here. And after a6 here, if you want to have a weird position which you're not used to as a French Tarrasch player, you can play knight f3, which is the main move, and after c5 you basically don't have the option to play knight e2 and transfer the d2 knight to f3. So against this I normally choose bishop to d3, so that if knight f6 is played I can transpose to the main line with a6 inserted, but most people play c5 and then, sorry, not ed, but dc5 and bishop c5, and you basically get a normal looking position. However, my opponent played a6 here, and I already had to have quite a big think because I was completely unfamiliar with the position. Now, the thing I am familiar with is black simply pushing c4, b5, playing queen b6 and castles queenside. in which case f4 is not a very useful pawn break, because white's pawn chain is facing black's king side, so I'm supposed to play on the king side. However, if the queen side is completely closed, and if black's king is on the queen side, opening up the king side can only harm me. So one option you should consider as white here is a4, which I didn't particularly like. This, of course, prevents b5 and prevents white's main idea, black's main idea. However, after cd, f6, and ef6, which I'm supposed to play, and castles, and black gets in the quick e5, d5, knight e5, I wasn't really sure what my pawn was doing on a4, and when I visualized this, I really wasn't happy with the position. So after a6, as I said, I had a think and I castled. So I was basically allowing b5 and this idea with c4, queen b6, bishop b7, castles queenside. And here, I think I made a mistake. Now, I had, okay, only 2 out of all the games I looked at with an engine briefly, because my friend and teammate Vlatko was with me and he asked me to show him the game, so he inserted it into the engine. And I'm not sure, I don't remember if we looked at this move. We looked at one critical position, but my next move may have been a mistake. Now what I'm going to do, I'm going to go through all of these games in great detail once more. I only had 1 round of analysis yet, but I'll figure it out. So basically I played a3. This is simply to prevent the very quick b4, which I'm not sure I should be preventing. Let's say I play a stupid move and he plays b4. Of course I'm not going to take it, but what's he threatening? If I play another stupid move and he takes, this doesn't really harm me, he hasn't achieved anything. So playing a3 could just be a redundant move. My opponent continued queen b6, and as I said, he's going to play bishop b7, castles queenside. So playing f4 could only harm me. For example, bishop b7 and f5 doesn't really achieve much. Castles queenside, takes. And I mean, the f file is open, so maybe rook f7 is something, but I don't really think I have that much here. Now looking at the position, this may have been good, but he can just play g6. And if I'm going to open the g file, then, well, for example, I don't know, knight f3 here and bishop b7, and, well, here I could go knight g5 and h6 and then go back. I wasn't sure about this, but I basically knew that I didn't want to play f4, opening up the position for him. So I continued knight f3, simply reinforcing d4, bishop b7 as expected, and bishop to e3, connecting my rooks. And here he played bishop e7. Here I didn't know what to do, really. I didn't know how to improve my position. But since he played bishop to e7, there was still a slight chance that he was going to play castles short and f6, in which case my rook belongs on e1 to prevent e5. So I played rook e1. And I also figured, well, this shouldn't be a bad move. It's useful to have a rook on the e file, and couldn't harm me that much, but he castles queenside. And here I had a second big thing. So now it's all about who gets to open the position up first. f6 is not advisable for him here because of knight f4, but he could continue g5 simply, and g5, g4 trying to just blast open my position. So I figured I had to be quicker. Now my opponent is a young player and lower rated than me, so I wanted to have an attacking position. I didn't want to allow him to be the first one to start the attack. So have a think here. If you want, you can pause the video. How would you start attacking black? I came up with a4, which now does mean that a3 was definitely a redundant move. But basically after a4, he has a tough time deciding what to do. If he takes, that really should be bad for him, because I can take here. And now, of course, queen b2 runs into bishop a6. And if he plays c4, then I simply play bishop to c2. If he takes queen b2 now, I simply go queen to d2 and rook b1 on the next move. And this should be very good for me, especially because my knight can now come to b4 into his position. I could also consider sacrifices like this, Or I could consider transferring the knight to e3, which takes a ton of time, but it's possible. Something like this, and moving the bishop out to g5. Basically, this is his good bishop, this is my bad bishop, this is my good bishop, this is his bad bishop. So I want to play bishop g5 at some point. So he shouldn't take. If he advances with b4, then I think dc5 is extremely good for me. For example, knight c5 and knight d4. I'm not sure which one, probably knight e d4. And let's say he takes bc3 and bc3. This is quite good. I mean, everything's defended. The b file is open, and so the most logical move after a4 is c4. Now the thing I had to calculate, the first thing I had to calculate is what do I do against c4, and he played c4 and I played a takes b5. Now he cannot take the bishop, he loses on the spot, because after cd3 bc6 I'm simply winning another piece. If he now takes d2, then cb7 check and queen b7, queen e2. Sorry, I'm not winning another piece. I'm a pawn ahead, and a6 is caving in, and of course I can just transfer my pieces towards his king, and I'll probably win. So against a takes b5, he has to take this pawn. I'd really expected a b5. And against a b5, I was going to play bishop to c2, and simply play b3. For example, king c7, b3. And I'm starting to open the position up. Now, I have to be slightly careful. Let's say he plays here. I have to be slightly careful not to make his bishop really good. But on the other hand, I can go knight f3, knight e4, and knight c5 or knight d6, and I get some squares as well. But against a takes b5, he actually played queen takes b5, which surprised me a great deal. Now, of course, this move threatens to win the pawn on b2. And I have to move my bishop, so he is going to win the pawn on b2. But I just thought that was impossible. So I have to play bishop c2. And if he doesn't take on b2, I'm going to play b3 anyway, which might be favorable for him compared to the game, because at least he can then take dc4 once I take, and he can open up his bishop. But he took on b2, and now I felt that I had no problems in the position. I felt this position was winning. I played queen d2. He, of course, has to play queen b6, otherwise rook e b1 wins the queen. Rook e b1 anyway, queen to c7, and now I played queen to d1. The idea behind queen d1 is twofold. Firstly, I want to create a battery here. Secondly, I want to transfer my knight into the game and plan some sacrifices on e4 if possible. And thirdly, if I don't play bishop g5, I may want to play bishop c1 and bishop to a3 to trade the bishop off that way. Here he played a good move. He played knight b6. Which defends, and I think I played a slight inaccuracy, rook a2. Now the idea behind rook a2 is, of course, I want to play rook a to b2 and threaten the knight, but there's a simple defense which he found, and that's knight a7. The idea behind knight a7 is if rook a to b2, he plays knight b5, and I basically have nothing, and my c3 pawn is under pressure. So here, bishop g5. Now, if he retreats the bishop, I take the exchange. If he takes, this should be really good for me, because I've traded off my worst piece, and I can continue attacking him. I can continue here, and after knight b5, I can play bishop a4, and he takes, and I'm opening up the king side. So he really should play f6, which is the most normal move in this position. And the point of f6, in my mind, was that once I take, he takes with the g-pawn, and I play bishop h4, try to transfer the bishop back to g3, firstly to defend my king, secondly to make e5 less good, let's say. But he surprised me a great deal. He played bishop f6, and after this, white has to be much better, simply because there's no threat to my king. Well, not for the moment, but he hasn't opened the g-file, and they get a free tempo with bishop f4, and it's basically a great position now. And here he played queen c6. So now I have to continue the attack, and I have to have to come up with something. The most logical move is knight e5, of course, forcing the trade of bishops, the trade of bishop for knight. And if I don't do that, if I play, for example, rook a to b2 and knight b5, then this knight is sort of restricted and have to be slightly careful when moving it. So in this position, I did play knight e5, and he has to take it, so takes. And here I made, believe it or not, the losing blunder. So in this position, I just have to take with the bishop. The point is, his bishop and queen are lined up against my king, and I could easily get mated. So I just had to take with the bishop, and I have a better position. This should be better for me. I mean, my bishop is a monster, my knight could come into f4, threaten e6, and it's a good position. Unfortunately, I saw a way for him to fight against de5, which did not include considering his biggest threat in the position. And I have to say, this is probably because I find it extremely hard to take lower rated players as seriously as people who are higher rated than me. I don't think I would have made this mistake against a 2200 player, which is one of my biggest weaknesses. I don't have the same mindset against all people I play. This is very bad, and it's very hard to admit it like this and to show you this position, but that's just something I have to improve. So let's see. So basically, I took with the d-pawn, thinking, oof, knight d4, and I just win. Which is true, unless he plays a winning move for black, which I did not consider at all. Which, I mean, after the game, I came to my room, and I remember texting Milan, Jesus, I just lost a piece in one move, and he didn't see it. He didn't see it. What I'd been expecting was simply knight to b5, preventing knight to d4, against which I would have still played knight to d4 and gotten this position, which is really good. However, after d takes e5, black to play and win simply plays d4. And this is a mate threat. So in my brief analysis after the game, I thought queen f1 was best, but now d3. And I have to throw in knight d4 to try and save my pieces. He simply takes that. C takes d4, d takes c2, and I can resign. This is just unplayable. This is completely over. Let's say rook takes c2, he just plays knight b5, and my position is collapsing. This is just over. So d5 was the worst mistake I made in the entire tournament, which is good news considering, well, I didn't make such a blunder in all the other games. I don't think I made a horrible blunder again during the tournament, but this was the first and only one, and it could have hurt me badly. Instead, he didn't even play knight b5, he played h6, which just loses on the spot, so he went from winning to losing in one move, which is unfortunate for him. I can imagine how he felt after the game when he saw that he had this opportunity. I know how I would feel. So I played knight d4, and now it's over. There's no way to defend both to move the queen and defend the e6 pawn, because the b6 knight is hanging. If, for example, queen d7, then rook takes knight. So he plays queen c5, knight e6, queen c6, knight d8, rook d8, and now queen g4. Now I saw the threats. I actually saw what was going on a few moves later. So queen g4, now everything's defended. d4 is not a threat. King b8. And now the conversion was really simple. King a8, e7, rook e8, queen takes g7, knight a to c8, attacking the pawn, and now queen takes h6. And he basically has to trade. If he doesn't trade, I don't know what else he does. I'm going to, for example, if he goes queen to d7, then I can just take, I think I can just take. And take twice, and I should be winning. If he keeps defending the knight with queen to c5, then I think I can just throw in bishop to e3 and if he takes on e7, once again I win the knight. So he exchanged queens, queen takes h6, bishop h6, and now rook e7, bishop e3, knight d7, and now I found a way to trade everything. Bishop f5, knight f6, bishop c8, bishop c8, bishop to g5, and in this position the winning move is rook to b2. There is no way to save the bishop and prevent checkmate. If he moves the bishop away, for example, then this is just a mate in two. If he... I don't know what else he can do. If he tries to defend the bishop, then again I can do this. No, wait. Can I do this? I think I can. No, yeah, probably rooks to c6 was the only move that held. I'm not sure now. I was looking at this, and this also, of course, loses to this. But yeah, maybe rook c6 holds. I'm not sure. But I mean, the position is lost anyway. Pawn and exchange down. But yeah, my opponent played bishop to b7 and resigned with his move. So I would say that apart from the mistake I made, I played well. And very luckily for me, I didn't get punished for my idiocy. I basically took no time for d5, which is... If I'd been punished, I think I would... Well, long term that would be better for me. Not getting punished for moronic moves like this can be costly later on. I hope I'm going to learn from this anyway. I was extremely stressed when I saw what I did, and luckily I didn't get punished. Okay, so we've been through the worst. Trust me. No other game I'm going to show you features a mistake as bad as this. So in round 2, I got paired with a higher rated opponent, and I'm going to show you that game next. Thank you very much for watching. Sorry for not recording for a while. I wanted to take time off to focus on chess. I wanted to concentrate on the tournament. Now that it's over, I'm back to regular recording. Thank you for watching. Stay tuned for more chess. Bye bye.